Good afternoon or good morning, depending where you're joining us from. And welcome to today's webinar, an overview of family service learning. We're very excited to have you with us. This is the first in a series of monthly webinars that will go through May, where we'll be talking about different aspects of family literacy and family learning programs. And today, though, we're talking about family service learning, which has been a really exciting opportunity for several kind of initial programs. Throughout today's webinar, if you have questions, we are going to leave you muted, but you are more than welcome to type in the questions box, and we'll kind of address those as we go, or leave a little bit of time at the end. Usually we kind of contextualize those answers so that we don't lose where they fit in. This is Patricia Lovett joining you today. I'm a team leader with Family Learning, and I'm kind of the consistent voice through these webinars. We will kick off in just a little bit, but a little background about myself. I work across grant programs here at NCFL, particularly with our family learning model, and kind of providing coaching and assistance with Toyota Family Learning and NCFL Family Learning, as well as putting my subject matter expertise as the ELL specialist into practice with adult education teachers and some with family engagement for elementary school teachers as well. And I have a colleague joining me today as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Amanda Evans, and I also work here at NCFL as a family learning specialist. Over my career in the field of education, I've worked with learners of all ages, both domestically and internationally. Most recently, I was the Technology and Family Coordinator for Milwaukee Environmental Sciences Academy, which is a charter school in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. At NCFL, I work with the Family and Child Education, or as it's better known, the FACE program, as a technical assistant and as a professional development trainer. So here at the National Center for Families Learning, our mission is to eradicate poverty through education solutions for families. We do this by engaging multiple generations of the same family and learning together. Research has shown that the educational level of the mother is the strongest indicator of the educational success of the child. This is why NCFL's education model is designed to address the needs of the parent and child together. In other words, if we teach our adult participants about the tools they need to succeed, they will become empowered and pass those lessons on to their children. Family service learning, a key component in engaging learners of all ages, is one avenue to give families hands-on experience with the tools of success.
There are several ways that we really work to accomplish this mission. For one, many of you know us through intensive two-generation solutions, such as the FACE program that Amanda mentioned, or our other grant programs. I know many of you are part of our Toyota Continuing Partners Network, and that would be included here as well. In addition to those kind of intensive programs, we also work on a contract basis with communities across the country to address different family learning concerns and opportunities, really to bring as much benefit as possible to those families. Additionally, many of you may be familiar with our online learning resources and networks such as Wonderopolis and its Wonderground, which reach total around 10 million annually. Additionally, we spend a lot of time advocating for the continued practice of family literacy on state levels as well as on a national level, and really helping to ensure that family literacy and now family service learning are well understood by legislators as important opportunities for families that you're serving, and that the funds continue to be available to make those things happen. In fact, part of that overall reach includes that we are sitting smack in the middle of Family Literacy Month. So, so really those opportunities to kind of engage educators and families across the country come through these various portals. As I said, our two-generation on-the-ground programming is a critical part of our ability to meet our mission. And we are currently in 103 cities with various partners, such as many of you who are joining us today, and funding partners as well. These stars that you see on our map are really indicative of a great opportunity that NCFL has had to really customize this model and bring it into today's world with families. And that's a lot of what family service learning is about. So we're really excited to share with you today kind of how that has happened from the very first 5 cities and our early phase sites into today's world where we have families engaging in service together. So I always like to start, even when I'm talking specifically about family service learning, with the overall theory of change that underlies Toyota Family Learning and the subsequent family learning programs. We start with a concept that you guys know well if you are working with families, which is really starting with the parent. Helping that parent to understand his or her goals, to identify those goals, and to look for ways to achieve those for themselves as well as for their families. This happens through adult education, adult skill building, and through parent time, which is really a formalized, specific time to focus on parenting skills and on really what can help take that parent from the first and really most vital teacher of their child to the best version of that they can be. And that really, over time, starts to give rise to a parent who's more confident engaging with their child. In the graphic, you see it kind of transition to the parent and the children out in the yard, and they're spending time together. And during parent and child together, or packed time, this is what we see happen. That parent takes what he or she is learning in parent time, the skills that are being developed, and starts to put those into practice in the interactions with their child. So they're following the child's lead. They're learning alongside their child, but they're also thinking back to, okay, we talked about, you know, what length of sentences my child should be using when they're speaking at this age. So am I noticing that when we engage together? And they're really looking to draw on what they're building in parent time. What has been really interesting and exciting over the years is through family literacy programming, where parents are engaged and they're engaging their children, over time there was this kind of natural opportunity that families that were engaged in the program started to look beyond the mirror of, what is it that I need? What is it that I'm hoping to achieve and to do with my family? And they started to look through that as a window instead and see their community and how they might make changes. And this is really where we started to see family service learning, before it was family service learning, occurring, where families are looking for ways to address challenges they see in their community, inequities they see in their community, and they're really putting to practice what it is that they're learning. Through the opportunity to really formalize this, what we did was take this kind of organic thing that was happening that was really great and put a formal process to it that we're going to talk about today as a way to guide families to really strengthen what they're learning in their classes, in their program, along with becoming more connected members of the community. And over time, the true beauty of this full model is that we see not just that growth in the family, not just that growth among families in the program, but that there starts to be this engagement of other people in the community as well. People that our evaluators call non-enrolled participants. those family members that can't attend the intensive program but are able to take part in projects, or those other community members who start to see enrolled participants in a new light, because these may be people in their community that they have never really paid much attention to, and now are really doing amazing things and making change happen. And over time, what we see is really compounding change. It moves beyond the program into an actual opportunity to change a community, to change a city, and to go really as far as you could think to go. So to move into family service learning, really we have to look at what is service learning. And the idea for service learning is definitely outlined in legislation. It's an opportunity for learning that happens in a community, meets the needs of that community, coordinates in some way with the school or community group, that connects to the curriculum of the participants, that connects to their feeling of opportunity to be a part of the community. And really throughout this process, the big thing is seeing the opportunity for families not just to learn in a program and not just to serve in a program, but to do those things together. And so what you see on your screen right now is really specific to service learning, which often in the past has really been kind of pushed to occasionally younger children, K-12 children, and often university students. And what we are doing is really taking that idea of service learning and putting it in the context of the family. So Amanda is going to tell you a little bit more about that idea of moving into the family.
All right, so family service learning is a process for families to learn together as they serve their community. It is an effective method for youth and adults to gain college and career readiness skills. Family service learning is a carefully planned and designed project that spans enough time for it to be effectively executed. Finally, it is an experience that amounts to being a more than one-time volunteer event. It's not just a one and done. The goal is to make family service learning a regular part of families' lives, even when they are no longer participating in the program. Family service learning is a 6-step process: investigation, planning and preparation, action, reflection, demonstration and celebration of learning, and sustainability are the 6 steps. Throughout the process of family service learning, participants have the opportunity to gain valuable employability skills. A great tool to help families visualize the skills they are gaining is the Career and Technical Education, or CTE, framework. It is an employability skills framework created by the Department of Education. The CTE framework draws on research from the paper, Are They Really Ready to Work?, which is about the basic knowledge and applied skills of new employees in the 21st century from the employer's perspective. The Learn to Earn Toolkit, an NCFL resource you may be familiar with, is also based off the research from this paper. Let's take a quick look at the website to see this useful tool for discussing employability skills. So as you can see here, the easiest way to access it is to go to Google and search Employability Skills Framework. The very first link will take you to the CTE framework. So let's take a look at the Developing Skills tab and click on Developing Employability Skills. So at the top, you can read the introduction for developing employability skills and some of the bulleted points about using them in the classroom. The resource I've been referencing here is the lesson planning checklist. You can see in the center where create custom lesson planning checklist. You could choose either the teacher checklist or the student checklist. There are 2 ways to print off the checklist: either the button at the top that says printer friendly, or you can click at the very bottom of the page on the Create Checklist tab. When you create the checklist, it creates a PDF file for you. For the student inventory, at the top, of course, they can put their name and date and any comments they have. Each of the employability skills is listed down the side, and they have the option to take notes. For example, if there's any websites that you have referenced in class that may be useful to them, or if they have any books in mind that they need to check out. If we look at the teacher employability skills checklist, and again, we're going to click at the bottom for the Create Checklist. Select our PDF once it's downloaded. We can see in the center there is an Included in Lessons tab. So this helps to make sure that lessons are including the different employability skills. As we all know, a lot of times we are already using employability skills in our lessons just naturally. This is a great way to make sure that you're touching on some of the ones that you might not necessarily always think to hit. Examples and descriptions for each of the skills are listed on the left-hand side of the page. You can also see these if you go back to the main page and hover over the different tabs. All right, so let's get into the 6 steps of the family service learning. The first step is investigation. This phase of the process, as is true for every step, involves all participants and their ideas. This includes children. During this step, families assess the strengths and needs of their community to determine an issue they would like to address. This may involve community mapping, interviews, and research. Ideas could be sparked by a need that is seen in the community, a topic that participants find interesting, a theme that is common among participants, or a topic that is current in the learning environment. There are a few examples listed here on the slides. When first starting out this conversation as a facilitator, it can be a bit difficult for participants to take the lead on their own. They are used to their teacher leading the way. To kickstart the conversation, it is helpful to remind students of the conversations they have already had about their concerns. These organic conversations may have happened over lunch or came up as an issue that was shared out during parent time or pack time. Whether the conversation is a result of a teacher-facilitated discussion or the result of an organic conversation that is expanded on in the moment, it is important to remember as teachers that our role is to be a passenger in the conversation, not the driver. The results of the participant-driven investigation is a meaningful project to the families since they were the ones to identify it. Let's take a look at an example of this. Families in the FACE program at Little Wound discussed the need for fresh produce and how expensive it is to purchase locally. The discussion started as a casual conversation between participants. They talked about health concerns in their community, such as diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, and obesity, and how they are related to food scarcity. Families were discouraged by the prices of fresh produce in the area and found it difficult to make ends meet, all while wanting to provide healthy options for their families. Through investigation, they discovered Kyle, South Dakota, which is where Little Wound is located, is a food desert. They learned this is largely due to a lack of grocery stores, farmer markets, and healthy food providers. Local businesses donated seeds for fruits, vegetables, and flowers to the program. Families decided they would work together and plant gardens at each of their homes. For many of the parents, support and knowledge were the main obstacles to success. To overcome these obstacles, families supported each other by learning about the process of planting, harvesting, preparing food for the winter, and preparing the ground for the next planting season. Families were able to become more self-sufficient with their food. The next step in family service learning is planning and preparation. During this step, it is important to consider the strengths of all participants, even young children. This is a great opportunity for families to reach out to their connections, as well as work with other families to increase their social capital. Encourage students to think about their social and professional connections and how they can leverage these relationships to help achieve their goals. Planning and preparation is also the time to determine the administrative needs, the tools, or the transportation needs of the project. Organizing the people and materials necessary to carry out the Family Service Learning project may include making flyers, creating lists, shopping, gathering materials, forming committees, or even making personal visits and phone calls. It is also essential to determine the learning outcomes for the project. What do participants want to learn from their experience? This is a great place to tie in the CTE framework and make connections to transferable skills. This next example from the San Mateo County Library in San Mateo, California, gave participants several opportunities to increase their employability skills as well as their social capital. For this Family Service Learning project, families raised awareness about food insecurity in their community. They worked with their community partner, Second Harvest, which is a national organization, to learn about the process of collecting and distributing food. As a part of their planning and preparation, families discussed the strengths and challenges they may face. They created flyers, collected food donations, and prepared the food for distribution. At the outset, families set a goal of distributing 100 meals. With the aid of their community partners, San Mateo County Library families were able to surpass their goal of 100 meals. Action, the third step in family service learning, and my personal favorite, is a fun part of the process, but not necessarily the most important. The action step is an opportunity for participants to focus on the skills and knowledge they have been building throughout the project and sharing that with the community. Ask families to reflect on what they have struggled with, the challenges they have overcome, and the skills they have built as a result of the process. It is important to note the action step does not necessarily refer to just one day. It refers to the time when families are doing the goal they set out to accomplish. Our next example comes from Plano Family Literacy School in Plano, Texas. This Family Service Learning project came about as the result of participants seeing a need for more bilingual books. During parent time, a speaker came from little free libraries to share information. Volunteers from around the community, including school board members, participated in the action step. Activities such as this are a great way to involve dads who tend to enjoy building projects. More than 1/3 of program sites have done little free libraries. As a side note, community gardens often draw dads in as well. Jane Lilston, the coordinator for Toyota Family Learning at Plano, commented on the action step by saying, quote, "Everyone involved had a good time. What a wonderful feeling to know you are making your community neighborhood a better place and having such a fun time doing it. This will be one that will be remembered for a very long time," end quote. And now Ms. Patricia is going to take us into the next step.
Thank you, Amanda. And I just want to point out here, I had a question come through the box a minute ago about examples of family service learning projects where the families have low levels of English proficiency. And as we kind of transition off of this slide, I want to point out that the families in Plano Family Literacy School are largely learning English as their second or additional language. So, so this is a great project to kind of start off with answering your question there. As a reminder for anyone else who has questions, if you want to add those in the question box, we'll try to address them as we move through. And if not, we'll have a couple of minutes at the end to get to those. So as Amanda pointed out, you know, action is often people's favorite step, and it's the exciting part of family service learning. For those of you who work in family literacy programs, you may be familiar with the idea of having someone come to visit parent time or even packed time at times, and it's difficult for a guest to really get the idea in a very short amount of time with your program. Family service learning has been very different because of the action step, really. It's very visible to people outside of a program how what is being learned in the classroom, what is being developed as a family, really extends beyond just content, but is really building skills that help to develop that safety net around families, that they are building skills that transfer to work opportunities and kind of beyond. And so that action step really has been pretty transformative as far as the way that participants may be seen in the community. I like to be the one to talk about reflection, which is where we are now. The fourth step, reflection, is kind of funny because it gets its own step. Throughout the process, facilitators are really encouraging solid reflection, in the moment change, whatever it takes to make sure this is the best project that families really can put together. But following the action, there's also this opportunity to really stop and reflect carefully and thoughtfully about the process. This is an opportunity for people to engage different modalities, different ways that they like to express themselves. But they're really thinking, you know, what did we learn in this project? What is it that we did for the community? What does this mean for our community? What does it mean for us? And a lot of times that step kind of gets skipped because it's easy to just move on. But the reflection of family service learning projects very often leads to a future project that addresses the same challenge, or that even hopes to really make the same outcome, but better. Because participants reflect on what went a little differently than we expected it to in this project, and how can we do that better next time? And that's where you see really that opportunity for reflection to drive the next project and help participants see that capacity that they have for themselves. The example that I'm going to share for reflection comes from Southwest Solutions, and this is, in addition to some of the examples that Amanda shared, this is a really good opportunity to see that families tend to connect to challenges that are very salient for them. So you see programs where there's food scarcity, families are unsure about where their next meal is coming from, so they may choose to address that in the community. In Detroit, homelessness is a big problem. And across programs, there are often times that participants are homeless or near homeless themselves. And homelessness tends to come up as a project as well, a project theme often. The participants at Southwest Solutions decided to support those who were going to a homeless drop-in shelter by providing food, some warm blankets, scarves, things that would provide some comfort to the people in this drop-in shelter. And what you see here is the reflection following the opportunity not only to take these items to the people, but for children to ask some really tough questions of their parents. You know, what is it that, you know, why is it that people end up in this situation? Don't they have family members who could help them? Why are they alone? This kind of thing that young children will ask. They were able to engage in the project, and then the reflection that you see here, where you see a young child has written a little bit and drawn. You see a lot of drawings in reflection. Again, Javier, to your question about having participants with lower literacy levels, lots of times we'll see more kind of hand-drawn posters in those projects, even adults drawing pictures as part of reflection as well. And that's based on language proficiency level. Of course, we also see bilingual reflections happening. But in this particular one, I really love all of the love and the hearts that you see in the picture. And you can tell that the children really connected to the people that they had met. And that's a really important part of kind of solidifying the learning that has happened in the project. The next step, as Amanda said, action is her favorite step. I would say demonstration and celebration is probably right up there for me. this is particularly important when families are just beginning to engage in service. They very often have a disbelief. Can we really do this? If we have this event, are people going to show up? Are you sure that we can actually, you know, if we plant this garden, is it really going to grow? And that disbelief is rooted in past experiences. People really do let you down sometimes. Things really don't turn out the way that you expect. So as part of building this idea of service and of really achieving goals that they set out to achieve through the project, taking that moment to stop and say, wow, we really did something here, is new to a lot of the families. And frankly, it's, you know, it's something that a lot of times I think we across the board forget to do, to take that moment to stop and say, hey, we did something really great here. And so this is one of my favorite steps to work with programs to increase, because it really is an important opportunity. Demonstrating results, you know, sharing out with the community, with media, just with families that are engaged in your organization, as well as the celebration. These don't have to be big formal parties. It's just that opportunity to stop and say, this is what we did, and this is why it's important, and this is why it's great. So the example that you see for this comes from Houston Public Library, and this was a campaign that came out of parents really talking about nutrition and health and deciding, you know, understanding the bigger importance of drinking water to one's health. These parents and then their children coming into the project said, you know, we don't really drink enough water, and we're pretty sure that we're not alone in that. And so they decided to create a campaign around drinking water and increasing water consumption in their community to help people be healthier. In their project, there was a lot of opportunity to use technology. They had some social media campaigning around it. They had opportunities to create flyers. They made labels to put on water bottles and handed those out in the community. And through those efforts, particularly because they were sharing out electronically, they were able to see the changes that were happening not only in their own families, but in their community as well, with people saying, hey, I'm drinking more water, and really kind of increasing that consumption, which was the goal of the project. So the families decided, as part of that celebration and demonstrating what they had done, to reach out to the city and let them know. So they did, and you see here a picture of the proclamation that the city of Houston actually put out for Drink Water Houston Day. So if you take a moment and you think about the participants that you are likely working with in a program, and what a big deal something like that is, that's a pretty amazing feat for families that really started out with a pretty simple idea to go to the point of having a citywide proclamation. That's a pretty big celebration. And I also love in their celebration picture, you see everybody has their bottle of water. They had kind of a family party with cake and water, which I thought was very cute. But that really brings us to the last step of the process, which is sustainability. Sustainability, you know, as we all know, is what really makes the difference. So we can, you know, as Amanda said, family service learning is not a one and done opportunity. We can get together and clean up a park. We can get together and build a little free library. But what happens in 2 months when there are no books in our little free library? So sustainability is in part an opportunity for families to think into the future. When you think about the type of goal setting that you do with participants in a program, and you're looking to, starting to set those short-term goals, and then starting to really make it, to make that extend to, okay, what can we do in the future? How are we going to get there? Sustainability fits into that piece of really starting to plan bigger for the future. And in this step, you see families looking maybe to build partnerships, even for little free libraries, making a calendar and assigning who's checking back, who's going to be in charge of refilling that space. This step is kind of two-pronged, though. So the idea is not only to sustain the projects, but it's also to sustain the change that happens within the families. In our granted programs, families are required to complete 3 family service learning projects per year. And the reason behind that is that they are engaging this process, and they are really equating service with their journey to becoming lifelong learners. They are building a habit of service as a family that is hopefully going to sustain beyond the time that they're in the program. Participants often are in a program for 1 year, and beyond that, there's less likelihood that they will continue that civic engagement if it hasn't become a habit for them. So through this process and that requirement, we're really hoping to make it a part of the program and to make it a part of those participants' lives. At Chief Lachey, which is actually a really exciting example, in addition to Little Wound that we shared earlier, Chief Lachey is one of our FACE sites. Amanda mentioned the FACE project, which is on Native American lands. And we are very excited to have begun engaging sites from the FACE program in family service learning within the past year. So, this is really a very big triumph as we've moved family service learning forward to be moving into a wide variety of programs. And the families at Chief Lachey actually were pretty similar to the families at Little Wound as far as understanding how important fresh food is to their health and to their families. They had some small garden space available for the preschool classroom previously, and as they looked to increase the family aspect of their garden and of their program, they were able to take those small garden plots and work together really to kind of revitalize them. Beyond that, though, the participants decided they wanted to share this with their community, and they wanted to share with the elders. So they have created gardens at different homes in the community as a way to share this. And beyond that, even, they really have decided to take some of the harvest and as families to harvest those fruits and vegetables and take them to elders in the community as a way to kind of to build that relationship and give opportunities for the younger children to engage with the elders, but also to share really important produce. Part of their sustainability here, though, that really has made this much more possible is a partnership with Permaculture Lifestyle Institute that's really allowed them to increase what's available and to expand where they're able to put these gardens. So family service learning really consists of these 6 steps. We are excited to be at a place where family service learning is something that is really happening across the country. It is supported by a national resolution through federal legislation, and is an opportunity for us to share real outcomes that are happening with real families. So some of those outcomes that we have really seen consistently across programs are families increasing their social capital and networks. They are connecting with new people, not just in the program, which is exciting in and of itself to hear. When I visit a program and a mother tells me, you know, I've lived in this neighborhood for 10 years or 15 years, and I didn't really go out before, but now I have friends here, that is huge in and of itself. But beyond that, when I visit other programs and I hear this participant just got a job at our organization because, you know, they came in, they were connected, I could see how passionate they were about the projects they were doing, and now they're an employee of our organization. That is taking the goal of our programs and putting it to work. Those families are building networks that not only increase their confidence and their belonging in their community, but they are building social capital and learning to leverage that to change their family's trajectory. And that is a huge outcome of the overall program. Additionally, as I said, families are increasing self-confidence, and this is not just the parents. A lot of times we focus on the parents when we think of things like self-confidence, but we're also hearing, you know, children who are part of really guiding and driving these projects saying, well, at first I was kind of shy, but I was really excited about this idea, so I just said something. And that's, you know, that seems like something very small, but that opportunity to develop their voice and to know that they have a voice and it's okay to share it is pretty amazing. We see family members, older and younger, increasing their content knowledge, learning to apply what they're developing in class. They're learning to apply it. You know, when we're watching families build little free libraries, we're seeing that they're measuring things. They're talking about angles. They're figuring out and solving problems. And these are important things that they're learning to do in class. They're increasing their technology skills. Several of the projects you probably noticed included some type of marketing, included some type of lots include social media sharing, and those family members are getting an opportunity to learn to do new things using technology in real world ways, which really makes that a much deeper application for them. And as Amanda mentioned earlier, we're seeing increased opportunities for them to develop work-based skills. This particular outcome initially was much stronger than we had expected. After the first year of Toyota Family Learning, the evaluators said, wow, these families are really learning to do a lot of things that translate to work. And as we looked through the evaluation, we knew it was true. But just like with adding in family service learning with the process, we said, okay, how can we make this intentional? So now we work with programs through onboarding really to use the CTE framework that Amanda showed you earlier, so that the opportunity to build these employability skills, these work-based skills through projects and through programming is not, it's not just an opportunity, it's something that is programmed. And it's something that really staff members are working to help ensure that that's happening. And that's through really a lot of opportunities for, as I said, kind of negotiation, problem solving, and prioritizing things in projects, as well as through these opportunities to use technology, to engage with people outside of the classroom. Going back to your students who are really still picking up language skills, when they have that chance to use their language skills to accomplish a purpose, that makes it such a rewarding experience for them, and it's really a motivator. You can see more about the outcomes of family service learning and its application in our family service learning brief. I'm going to take you there real quickly on our website. Hopefully you are familiar with familieslearning.org. If you're not, that is the main webpage for the National Center for Families Learning. You can link to almost anything that we do from there. If you go to our solutions and resources for educators and literacy professionals, there are many resources here. This is why I am showing you how to navigate there, because many of these resources are available free. And if you did not get a chance to join us at the Families Learning Conference, you may not have experienced the focus that we had on sharing these between sessions. So, so certainly I invite you to check out all of the free resources that we have available. But part of the way down that page, there is a leadership brief, family service learning. There are other briefs as well. But the family service learning brief, I'll pull up separately just so you can see it, looks like this. It was co-written with our evaluator from the Goodling Institute for Research in Family Literacy. And as I said, it talks some about family service learning as well as outcomes. So if you're just beginning the journey of implementing family service learning, in addition to NCFL staff loving to talk about this, this process, you could certainly start with the family service learning brief to learn quite a bit about where to go. In addition to that, I always like to share kind of words of participants, because I think we all know that you can hear what happens in a program, but when you hear it from the mouths of the participants, it makes such a difference. So these are a few that I've pulled from the evaluation that we received for last year's program. So that was 2016-2017 programming for Toyota Family Learning. First, perdimos la vergüenza de pedir cosas en la comunidad para beneficios de otros. We stopped being embarrassed to ask for things out in the community so we can benefit others, which is, again, when you think about those participants that are struggling with their language acquisition, this is huge, to have the confidence to use those language skills that you're developing, not just to say hello, but to accomplish purposes, to help other people. Imagine the good feeling that comes with that. Again, talking to community members, confidence, organization, and asking for more help. I see a lot of employability skills there that are very important. And then I particularly loved this one. I didn't share in my introduction of myself. My subject matter expertise is working with ELLs because I have worked across the age range, and I have seen this across the age range. We laughed because some of us never learned to use a scissor and cut the papers funny. And I thought that in our most recent evaluation, I thought that was a really phenomenal outcome, because so often in programs we think about, well, participants have got to learn how to send emails, and they've got to know how to use all of this technology, and they do. That's very important when it comes to getting a job that will sustain a family. But there are other things too. When you're working with participants who may not have had developmental education, not only do they possibly not know how to use scissors, but they may have difficulty writing with pencil. They often have difficulty with the layout of our notebook paper, things that we kind of take for granted because we learned those very early on. And the opportunity to kind of hybridize your work with families really can help you to hit multiple aspects of their development. A couple more kind of concrete outcomes that I want to share from our most recent evaluation. Here you see pre to post information about how families are engaging in community, are stepping up as leaders. And it is important to note, this is self-report. It's conducted in a one-on-one interview. Participants take an initial and a final interview. And so Amanda actually asked me when we got the report, she said, well, shouldn't they all have helped organize a project? And yes, they have all helped organize a project, but occasionally participants will kind of put that in the back of their mind when it comes to doing something that is a more formal interview. But across the board, you see that participants are increasing their engagement in their communities. They're overwhelmingly participating in things that they were not previously. And we see that with other types of activities as well. I try to avoid sharing significant amounts of the evaluation data in a webinar simply because of time. But we see increases in other activities that families are doing in the community that may not be connected to building their social capital, that may not be connected to increasing their leadership, but we see them starting to do things like go to a play or go to the water park, which indicates that they're finding these resources and they're accessing them. And for many, that's something that would not have been comfortable before. So so there are lots of ways that families are kind of stepping out and engaging their community, even outside of the kind of service portion of that. Also, I've mentioned goals several times in today's session, and that's because goals are what bring people to a program. They have a reason for being there. So here you see goals that were ranked as important or very important by our participants last year, and then out of that number, how many achieved that goal. So we see participants earning more money, upgrading their skills, getting better jobs, earning GEDs, becoming citizens. These are tremendous goals, and we see them achieving these goals through family learning, in part through their participation and development of family service learning projects. And that is really key, because all of the other parts are wonderful, but when a family is living in a dire situation and they are looking to improve that, when we see programs actually helping them get there, that is what makes the difference for that family. That's when they start to be more sufficient and more self-sufficient, and they start to be able to help with that compounding change I talked about earlier. Once they're feeling a little more on their feet, then they can start to pass that to other people even more than they have been. So this for us is always very exciting to see, how many participants really are reaching those goals that, that very well may help to make a difference generations into the future in their family. I do have a couple of questions coming in. Before I address questions, I just want to share, if you weren't with us this year in Tucson for the Families Learning Conference, you certainly want to go on and pay attention to the dates for next year's conference. September 24th through the 26th, we will be in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So we're very excited about that opportunity, and we're very excited to go on and start talking to you about it because registration is open. You can save $100 off the regular registration rate if you go on and get signed up. So we certainly encourage you to do that today. You know, it's a little chilly outside. Maybe the thought of Fort Lauderdale will warm you up. And we hope to see you there. For today's webinar, we have a couple of questions that we'll look at here. What about doing service learning through organizations that are found through volunteermatch.org and justserve.org? Do you recommend this method over using volunteer databases? That's a really good question, and when you look at the full process, a lot of times organizations may start by using that type of search for projects, but really where you tend to see the highest engagement of participants with a project is to follow the process through their input. So rather than looking for projects that are out there, really engaging families in that investigation step and helping them think, how do you want to address this challenge you're seeing? That is, that's really going to tend to yield the biggest results as far as them engaging in all of those important learning pieces along the way. Usually when we talk through the process, I explain it as being very similar to cooking with a child. So I know you're not with me, but I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and just think about if you've ever cooked with a child. I would imagine that the picture that's coming to your mind right now is probably an immaculate kitchen and, you know, muffins sitting on the counter that got there very quickly. That's not what I think you're picturing at all. You can open your eyes. But the process of cooking with a child is messy. There is, you know, there may be eggs on the ceiling and little boys who want to make gingerbread alligators. That was my experience once. Things that you don't expect. But there is so much that is learned through that process. And that is what happens when families really get to be in the driver's seat. They get the opportunity to engage in the messier parts of learning that really are what makes it so valuable. So, so as far as the database searches, I think for an initial just kind of looking for a way to start engaging, I'm not sure if I would have a specific one to suggest, but I would certainly encourage you to think about getting your hands a little bit messy with them. We have a couple of other questions. We might just try one here, and then any that are remaining we can address through email. And actually, we'll go on and pop to our email so that you can grab that if you would like. You're welcome to reach out to Amanda or myself. This is Patricia with questions, and we are happy to address those. We did have one more question that's a quick answer. Is there an existing curriculum guide or set of lesson plans to use with English learners for guiding family service learning? We do have some lesson plans that if you want to email me, I'm happy to send those to you for kind of micro lessons. They are they're not specifically targeted to like literacy level English learners, but we would be happy to talk to you about ways to engage families at lower literacy levels in the process. A lot of this process does entail getting in there with the families, and so it's very difficult to have a set curriculum for that, because every project is going to be very different. So as far as those micro lessons that kind of introduce the steps, I'm happy to share those with you. But I think a curriculum is probably a little bit outside of the scope that we would want to go into. So I think we had a couple of other questions that we'll address just through email. Aside from that, thank you all so much for joining us today. This was a treat for us, and I look forward to those of you who join us again in December, on December 15th in the morning. I believe it's 10 a.m. Eastern. We'll be talking about powerful, positive PACT time. Until then, thank you so much and have a great weekend.